Good evening. You're listening to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Pineless Palace at 2:17 a.m. in the morning. I have Professor Pixel with me, the young 20-something. Good thing he's not third grade or approximately, because he might be missing right now, because obviously I'm alluding to the movie we're going to be discussing. That would be Weapons, which recently came out by Cregger, or whatever the hell his name is. The guy that did Barbarian, which, Pixel, if I have to say, I remember thinking was somewhat intriguing, and I kind of liked the way it was shot, but I think it left me lacking or hanging, or I went, oh, they went gonzo, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but gonzo is one of those terms where I think it gets overused, and most people think of porn, but Weapons is that kind of a movie, and I got to tell you, I want to get the negative out of the way before talking about the positive with this film, because it's one that the trailer had me hooked, because it was enough of a tease where you weren't sure what was going on, and it has an interesting premise. And as a man myself that spent many a year in education in the classroom and with young children, the fact that a bunch of children from a classroom are missing, and you see like Josh Brolin being upset, and the fact that the female teacher are people that the town is starting to rip on, I liked it. What happens when they go missing? Why do they go missing? Immediately you think serial killer, you think whatever, but then not knowing that, and then you start to watch the film, that's great, and it's one of those films that you definitely don't want to know anything about before you watch it. But once it got to a certain specific part that I'll mention, I go, okay, I knew everything that was going to happen and why, and I got it. That being said, the one thing that some people think is negative too, and I can understand this point of view because I almost felt that way, is I appreciated the serious and dark tones of this, and a part of me feels disappointed that it did not go there. It went another way, and I'm totally okay with how it did it and why it did it. I have no problems with it because the guy was trolling us. And I think the 2-hour movie that we're talking about here, Weapons, the storytelling part was smart on his part by doing it, chapters from different points of view, because it kept that initial what the hell happened to the children thing dragging all along till it went full gonzo in the third act. And if you're going to go gonzo, you go gonzo. And so I'll give him credit. I think it's a half a step up from Barbarian as far as at least. And it was definitely very entertaining. I enjoyed it a lot. And I wanted to get your initial take on as we dive into this.
Well, you'll remember that I did like Barbarian. And when I heard that he was honestly, the title of this movie was throwing me off, though. But
What do you
I
think that
wasn't
means?
looking forward to this. I thought the trailer was fine. I might watch it. The only reason that I finally did was because you went ahead and said, "Oh my gosh, this is great," and I agree. I am really surprised because, like I said, I liked Barbarian. I thought it was a good movie. This is fantastic. I was genuinely creeped out of the moments that they wanted you to be. The mystery was good. I didn't know why the kids were going missing, but now we know. But overall, my only wish is that I had actually sat down fully in a theater and gotten that full experience, because that would have been 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I like it when you get a movie where, even if you know where it's going, getting from point A to point B is really the whole thing. That's how it is in any storytelling, right? It's there's different ways to tell it. There's different ways to present it. There's this non-linear shit that people like to do. You kind of get that here, but I look at more as chapters where the point of view shifts from different person to different person. So the two strongest ones is the young teacher, and it's the actress who's from Ozark, and I always thought she was strong in Ozark. She does really well in here. I like how you have the scenes. I like how in the first basic 5 minutes of the movie, you're told what was going on with the kid's voiceover, and all the stuff that would immediately rush to your head is dealt with. Why did they leave? People had film of them. What's going on with it? They all suspected her. What's going on? So they basically hit on everything that you could fill a movie out with, right? You already get the scenes of everybody yelling at her, basically saying she's up to something. She has one kid that shows up in class, and so my immediate thought was, yeah, this kid's involved, because it's just, there's no such thing as coincidences. There's not. So why is this one kid there and the rest not? They kind of don't really explain it there at the beginning, and he becomes more of a central character later, because they start with her and her story, and we see how it affects her. So I thought this is good storytelling, where you see her being driven to drink, where because no, she's a pariah in the town because she's in charge of children, and regardless of what people think of public education, all that, when you trust somebody and your kids as a professional, regardless of your politics or your race or your background, that means something. And then the fact that we see her drinking and being completely emotionally upset about it, we still don't know what her involvement is in it, because it is her kids in her classroom. But the fact they left late at night is interesting, because she's like, there's nothing I can do about it. And we see the anger in Josh Brolin's character as a dad being very pissed. I thought he brought a lot of energy and juice to it. So much so that, we see them almost inadvertently team up a little bit later, but not before we see her, have sex with a guy that seems to be rando because she's waved to a cop guy. And it's like, okay, they have a relationship. Why is she smiling? Why is she doing it? Oh, it's just for, a little one night stand kind of action where they may have had a history before because it's a small town. But then we're going to get his point of view with stuff. And so I agree with you. I think they really did a great job of this, keeping you enthralled in the story. And I think there's definitely humor in it as well, but it's a different kind of humor. It's the absurd kind of humor that you don't get. It's kind of like a non sequitur. If you ask me, like, what's my favorite color, and I say Wednesday, you're like, well, that's stupid, but it's definitely there, and it's needed because this mystery is pretty damn good. Those are some of the immediate things that pop out to mind to me. What else to you kind of pops out in your head that you enjoyed?
I think we're doing a really good job of not going directly into spoilers, and that, because I could go ahead and talk about that a little bit, but I think
you're trying to avoid it. I understand.
Yeah, I want to avoid it.
You can for the most part in this movie.
Huh?
You can for the most part with this movie.
Yeah. Because the mystery itself, it goes ahead, and when it reveals itself, there's still enough of the movie to actually enjoy it. And you know what? Maybe that was what for Barbarian, you really had that same thing. What's going on in the house? What's below? What's hiding out under there? And that mystery isn't revealed until like the last little bit. And then you get this ghoulish creature. But here, when you get to go ahead and find out what's happening, I really liked it. I also don't think I fully agree with the fact that, I see exactly where this is going for this one. I didn't see that ending coming. I'm glad I didn't, because when it finally does, it's mind-shattering, let's say.
It is, and mind-shattering is an appropriate choice of words there, because it's, if you know what it is early, then there's no unraveling for you. And one of the things about storytelling is, if you can trick somebody like Shyamalan does, an example, I see dead people and all that. Nobody knew what the fuck was going on, and then he got you, and everybody felt like, oh yeah, you got me, bastard. You did good. And then you go back and watch it and go, oh, that makes sense. You can appreciate it for what it is. That's his shtick, right? If you're going to give somebody something, I say you give it to them and make sure they're aware that they get it, not as an afterthought. I constantly mention the TV show Servant on Apple, where a young couple, a progressive rich couple, have a tragic incident in their lives when the wife gets pregnant. So she's going through therapy by having a surrogate in the form of a doll. And so they hire a nanny. And the best thing about the end of the first episode is, even though they're only like 20-minute episodes, is she's sitting there petting the doll, which is supposed to be the surrogate for their baby. And we hear a baby starting to cry. And you're like, the baby comes to life. And you're like, bullshit. That's not possible, right? Especially in modern Philadelphia, right? But they go through and do it. This reminds me a lot of that in here, because again, we're trying to figure out what's going on with the kids. And if you're a parent, for example, if you're a guy, you're gonna want to do something about it. So you can yell and scream and all that. But this one guy that deals with houses and all that too, because houses are, the betrayal of middle class America that's slowly disappearing. We don't know what happens behind those windows and what happens in what seems to be a regular neighborhood. We got that with the movie. Was it not Neighbors, but the one? I'm digressing here. I'll come back to that. It's, you get Josh Brolin's character takes a town map and he has the plots on them, and he starts drawing lines, because we all know that that's one of the great things. If you draw multiple lines and they have a point of intersection, that's your point of interest, and you don't need to know math and know that that's fine. And the reason why is because he has video off the Ring camera, which again, most people would have that in a middle class family. Kids are running off. and then they do kind of notice they're all running off a certain way, and it seems to be in the same direction. So there's a pattern to this, and the fact that they all went approximately 217 seems to be another one. Now, is the number a red flag? Is it significant? I'll leave that for the watcher to decide. So there's definitely enough in here to focus on, but what's important, you don't know, and that's crafty storytelling and smart in a way. In the order of it's important, because if they did some of this out of order, I think it would be not. I think the wind would come out of the balloon. Now, one of the things I want to mention here too is the point of view things. Is I understand that in today's movie world, we have DEI representation. That's something you cannot ignore, whether it's video games, movies, anything, content that's being produced. It happens. It's not 1980 anymore. It's the mid 2025s. So you have the principal of this town who puts the teacher on leave, and he's obviously gay. I'm not giving you spoilers here, but he becomes a chapter. And what I really, really enjoyed about his chapter is he spoke very professionally. He told her why things are the way they are. There was no bro talk. There was no girl to girl talk. There's no boss kind of stuff here. He was very professional. And so he basically forces her to take leave, which I'm not sure legally you can do, but they explain it. And then you go to see him in his regular day life. He meets his partner, and they're in a grocery store, and they're shopping and doing whatever. And whether you like seeing that stuff or agree that that's realistic or not, I don't really care. It's important to the storytelling because it shows him in his life of what's happening with it. And it turns out he becomes a bit of a central character later on, because you always wonder about the leadership in schools, not necessarily the teachers, the administrations, which generally speaking, most people think of as, I think, cowards, like your boss. They're not trying to win. They're not trying to be productive. They're trying not to lose. They're trying to just keep the status quo. But he gets heavily involved in the story arc that you kind of don't see is coming. And one of the things that throws you off too is you obviously know that they're gay, not flamboyantly so, where they're making fun of it, I would say. Being heterosexual, there might be certain parts of the subculture that I may not understand. But when this movie started to turn, where I really started paying attention to significant acts, because you ask yourself, why is it there and how is it important, is when he goes to sit down with a significant other having dinner, and he has this table spread that he puts down on the TV tray, and it's, I think, 7 hot dogs, 7 wieners, with potato chips and a spread and like carrots or whatever like that, and beans or whatever it was, or something on the side. And it's very obviously that the director's going, hey, I'm going to have these gay guys eating a bunch of wieners in front of you. And I thought, I'm being serious when I'm saying this to you. No, I'm being serious. It really pops out to me. And I go, did you just have a bunch of gay guys eating wieners? Is that supposed to be a joke? Is that like a gay thing I don't understand as a heterosexual man? Did you not see that, or did you not understand that?
I didn't think about it.
But it's obvious is my point, right? You know what the scene I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, they had them set down, but they actually don't get to eat any of them.
Because?
Well, that would go into spoiler. They have a guest. Let's say that.
Yeah, they do get a guest, which is interesting, because the guest, and here's the thing about the movie, and I'll shut up for a minute, let you ramble for a bit, is what's this movie about? Is it about serial killers? Is it about power structures in society? Is it a horror movie? Is it a comedy movie? Is it something different? Is it a movie that's trying to portray everybody's guilty because they choose to ignore certain sorts of things? You know, we talked about on our Twin Peaks television show review, we've done every episode and every movie of it. Everybody has their own pluses and minuses in their background and also part of their character, right? You get that here by changing all these perspectives. So is the problem the family members of the kids? Because the one kid that's there by himself, all the teacher wants to do is talk to him and see what's going on. She follows him to his house. She may or may not notice something there, but the police have done their job. Nobody's hiding anything. But at some point,
I will say we didn't get to talk about so there's like, and this is early in the film, so no, again, this isn't a spoiler, but they go ahead and you have Josh Brolin bring up, because like his big scene is saying, what does she know? Because apparently she had a DUI a couple years ago, and then she was fired from her last school to do with or something with a student. And like, you think that's going to be followed up. It's not at all. There's no mention of that. And I guess it really doesn't have any relevance here. But it was something
But it
that was
does illustrate that all teachers, whether they're coaches or whether they're the professionals of the school or like an average police officer, if you will, nobody's perfect.
no. But I do want to go ahead and say that God, I'm now going to be thinking about that. I wasn't thinking about the fact that they had like 7 hot dogs all laid out there. But now
there's I don't know what it is, and I'm being serious when I say so. I mean, it's no disrespect to anybody out there, whatever your sexuality is, your politics, or what country you're from, because we got our international listeners too, from Asia and all that too, where things are thought of differently. There's an element of gayness and flamboyantness in horror movies. I don't know why there is necessarily. I don't know how it helps horror or why it's there. I just know that it is. You know, the American Horror Story on television's completely flamboyant, and it's kind of fun in a way. You know, it's got a certain style to it, right? It's not just typical horror. A lot of times we draw horror from old tales in different cultures, which honestly were stories that parents used to use to keep their children checked when they would grow up and tell them all these fables and storytellers, and they're very dark endings. And you know, Disney, of course, before things really got into the public domain, co-opted those ideas and for the most part made them somewhat more watered down and family friendly, whether it's Pinocchio or Snow White and all that. But there's always a dark element to it, and I just don't know where the sexuality part got into it, other than when the idea is that if you're true and and you're a virgin, you won't get killed, because that's how you should live your life until you get married, and there's a Puritan ethic in that, right? So sometimes you can put that in like religious tones or whatever, and it makes sense that as soon as you have sex, you're going to die, like in the 80s horror slasher films. That's kind of dumbed down, but the whole gay part to it, I don't get, but it's there. Is it relevant to the film? I don't know.
Well, what I am going to say is that after going ahead and having this, whatever Zach Cregger does next, I'm going to be there for it. I liked Barbarian quite a bit. Weapons, this was fantastic. This is definitely up there with one of my favorite movies of the year. It's really astounding because I wasn't expecting it. I really, really wasn't. I thought that it could be okay. But there's just something in this one he's got the juice, and whatever comes next, I look forward to his career.
Yeah, a couple more quick pointers, and I'll see how you respond to them, that I think really helped this film out a lot, that I did not mention at the beginning. That's this. One, I think it's shot very well. I love the way it looks. I love the neighbors are in. It looks like probably outside Atlanta or whatever like that. A lot of stuff's filmed there these days, with the pine trees and the brick homes and whatnot. It's not pretty. It's not ugly. It can be kind of creepy looking or whatever. But what I also liked in terms of cinematography is there are some extremely, and I'm going to just leave it at this, there's some extremely shocking graphic scenes in here, which are effective. I've got zero issues with them. I like them a lot. If you're going to do it, I want it to be realistic. They are. They're really, really good. They're not dopey ass shit. The one character I only mentioned briefly was the police officer, and there's actually another character, which is I'm going to call him a junkie. They're very, very important because they all kind of link to each other as the story goes on, and then we all kind of see exactly how they're clipped together, how the timing of everything. It's not hard to follow, even though they bounce around from point of view. That's one thing I give a lot of credit for. But number one, and I'm only saying this because of I say third act, but really I'm talking about the last few minutes when you understand what's going on and how it ends up. The action sequences, they save it all for the most part towards the end. And I absolutely think it's fantastic how they're filming, how people are moving and running, and the whole violence of the ending and final act, and they go out with a bang. It's a joy to watch that in the end. Again, the only negative for me is that you have this really nice dark tone in the way the trailer presents it, and at the end you go gonzo, and it's kind of a laugh, right? And there's some funny stuff in it. That might take away from your ability to go, shit, this should have been a horror movie, but it was kind of funny at the end. I would say the ending is appropriate, because otherwise that could make me hate it. And I think that's the thing. I think it kind of fell a bit flat for me with Barbarian, but here I think it makes a bit more sense to it. and I enjoyed it. So that's why I thought it was batshit. If you're gonna go there, go there. And so I was tweeting out pictures of like the vegetable peeler, the Campbell's soup can, and I liked how a lot of people didn't give spoilers, because the point is when I'm seeing Campbell's soup in here and I'm laughing my ass off, it's because it's like, oh my God, I get why it's going on in here, and it works. It's not funny as in funny. I'm laughing because it's funny, but it's more of the disturbing kind of funny because it makes sense. And that's the beauty of it. And that's the kind of sense of humor that I did like in this horror movie that you get. Even the final ending there too, I think is great. And so I appreciated the young people today, not necessarily giving out the spoilers with it too, because if you haven't seen it, guys, this is a film worth checking out. It's one of the more entertaining films of the year. I enjoyed a lot. I'm glad you did too, Pixel. Any other final thoughts?
No, I'll just go ahead and echo with fantastic film. I'm very glad that I watched it. Thank you, Rob, for convincing me. I probably would have eventually anyway, because I got an AMC A-list, and if I don't see at least like 3 movies a month, I'm not getting my money's worth.
Right.
But great film. I'm just very pleasantly surprised.
Were you not entertained?
I was!
Yeah. This is, man, if this movie came out in the 80s and it was exactly the same, boy, the audience and all that, and all the word of mouth of this, holy crap. I think it's number 1 for a second week in a row because of word of mouth on Twitter and social media too. Deservedly so too. I'm like you. I'll be curious to see what Cregger does for his 3rd film. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching and listening to us here on the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, with the young 20-something Professor Pixel. If you guys have any particular shows that you're interested in us taking a look at reviewing or movies, let us know. As we start turning here into the fall season and going into Halloween, we focus a little bit more on horror and whatnot too. We've got some older stuff. We don't mind revisiting it, or any new stuff that's coming up, please let us know. Thanks for retweeting out the links so other people get a chance to listen to us and all that. We started off just kind of doing this as a hobby, starting to get a little bit popular and all that, so we appreciate all the watch time and everything else there too. Good night now.
This was a Zach Cregger production.